In this brief video, we present a user-friendly player development framework that utilizes the fundamental ideas of a constraints-led approach that has been brought to life at AIK Youth Football in Sweden. It has been argued that many player development models in youth sport are based on the presumption that learning, development, and performance are linear and predictable processes. This has led to misconceptions regarding the learner and the learning process, potentially undermining player development. It has been proposed that the constraints-led approach can inform modern player development frameworks by helping us to conceptualize the non-linear and individualized nature of learning. However, despite a growing body of research, there has been limited uptake of the constraints-led approach. Limitations have been attributed to the need to improve the communication of the key concepts of the constraints-led approach in ways that are understandable for coaches, practitioners, and organizations. This has led to numerous glaring misinterpretations of the constraints-led approach in practice. For example, the constraints-led approach has been misinterpreted as just another games-based approach. We turn to Adolph's notion of learning and development to add some clarity to what the constraints-led approach actually means and how it can be utilized in player development pathways and coach education programs. This notion of learning in, not and, development can help us to explain the fundamental ideas of a constraints-led approach for practitioners and coaches at all levels. Development describes the continuous changes, physical, psychological, skills, social, cultural, in the individual-environment relationship. Learning happens in the midst of these developmental changes, and learning is what the player does about it. This notion of learning and development sets the foundations for adopting a constraints-led approach in practice. Constraints, termed as individual, environmental, and task, do not operate in isolation. They interact to shape and evolve each individual's development trajectory over various timescales. For example, the coach needs to understand that individual constraints, weight, muscle mass, fatigue, emotions, vary between and within each individual over different timescales. In summary, the constraints-led approach can help coaches to understand and explore how various individual, group, and environmental factors impact upon learning throughout development, helping us to conceptualize the nonlinear and individualized nature of learning in development. While a constraints-led approach helps us to understand how skills emerge, it does not provide a framework for how to design appropriate learning environments in team sports. Principles of nonlinear pedagogy can enrich this limitation, supporting how coaches can harness the constraints-led approach in practice task design. Our Foundations for Task Design model can help to clarify the essential principles of a nonlinear pedagogy for practice task design in football. We suggest that this model can guide coaches both in the planning of practice task designs and in the real-time on-field evaluation of that design. We now give an overview of our player learning and development framework. Step 1 of this framework highlights the coach's role as a co-designer. The idea of co-design is that the coach supports players as they explore the performance environment, seeking to satisfy their own unique interacting constraints. This means that task designs, while underpinned by the Foundations for Task Design model, are also informed by the coach's knowledge of the player's current action capabilities. For example, the coach should be aware that a gap between opponents invites the opportunity to pass through for one player, but to dribble through for another, possibly due to differences in current individual action capabilities. Constraints used in this way should promote, influence, shape, or encourage actions, not eradicate or dictate them. For instance, a coach, through the manipulation of task constraints, can design a task that shines a light on players exploiting gaps and spaces through passing without removing the opportunity to dribble. For example, in this session, where target players are designed into the task. The second step of this framework relates to players learning in the game as they refine their perception-action coupling through the detection of key information in the designed environment. Therefore, it is important that key information sources in task designs are representative of the game. For example, the task constraint that everyone must touch the ball before a goal is scored does not promote effective perception-action couplings that are representative of the game. For instance, the team in possession are not attuning to information that will enable them to exploit gaps and spaces to penetrate and score. The third stage of this framework captures the process of recovery and adaptation to training sessions. Over typical timescales of learning, days, weeks, months, years, players' continued development will reshape this whole cycle and co-design process, emphasizing the dynamic nature of learning in development as captured in this framework. Something for the coach to reflect on when planning practice task designs throughout these different timescales is that the perception of affordances or opportunities for action changes as the individual's capability for action changes. This is because, although an affordance or opportunity for action is always available in the environment, its value and meaning for each individual change as the players learn in development.